Hey Tracy, how's it going?
Good. How about you?
Good, good. It's in the middle of quarterly reviews, which is a whole bunch of fun. Not right reports, very boring.
Where are you located?
Dublin, Dublin. So yeah, I have people in. I'd say my team's probably half in the US and half in Ireland, so it's a pretty even split.
So what is it, about 2:30 or something there?
4 o'clock. It's an unusually sunny and warm day in Ireland. Blue skies all around. 4 o'clock. So I think after this meeting, I'll take some garden time.
Oh my goodness, absolutely.
Hey, Melissa.
Hi, how's it going?
Going good. How are you doing?
Good.
Melissa, we're coming your way in, in June.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, maybe we get together for breakfast or something.
Yeah, I'd love that for sure.
We're gonna go visit Steve's niece lives in the Cherry Tree area. I think that's what it's called.
Cherry
Tree.
Creek.
Cherry Creek, yeah.
It's a beautiful place. Yeah,
Is it?
yeah, it's nice out there for sure.
Well, she got her first job out there in IT. Went to work for a company who does like they're part of the Space Force economy. They're doing like satellites and antennas. She's waiting for her. She's going to get her security clearance and she'll be on her way. And she's a programmer,
Nice.
so we're super proud of her.
Are you allowed to say where
I can't
she's
remember the name of the
working?
company. I can't remember
It's
the
not
name of
like
the
Northrop
company.
Grumman or something like that, is it?
No,
No, it's a
no,
smaller one.
they're
Oh, okay.
suppliers to Northrop Grumman though.
Oh, okay.
They're
All
part
right.
of that.
Is
That's why
it
I'm saying they're part of the Space Force economy where they're providing,
right?
services to the bigger companies who are really in the Space Force.
You'll have to send me your name because my brother's in that arena, so
Okay.
he might even know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's pretty excited about being in that part of the economy. I think for her first job, I think it's really exciting. And of
Very
course,
cool.
all the advocacy I do for women in tech, believe me, I had to nag and nag and nag at that girl to get her to go into computer science.
I had to do
It
that
was
with my daughter too,
I was a
because
nonstop like this.
yep, yep. I did the same thing. Yeah. We need that
Sometimes you
kind
have to.
of that encouragement.
Yeah, it got to not encouragement, but you know what, Emma, just stop thinking and just start taking computer science classes. Okay, stop
Right.
thinking about it. And of course, she succeeded quite. She was like, "Oh, these classes are easy for me," and I'm like, "That's what I
Of course they
figured." Right? Some girls just don't get it right off. They're thinking, "No, there's too many guys in those classes." I was like, "I know, but you need to be in there."
It'd be intimidating. Yeah.
Yeah, she can handle herself though.
Hey everyone, sorry I'm late.
No worries.
Oh, As I don't know if you saw my comment on the chat in Slack. We don't have much on the agenda for today. But yeah, so let me know if there are things that you would like to discuss and we can bring them up.
Yeah, I would like to discuss the hero project that Steve and I introduced at CDCon.
All right. Cool. So just briefly, the only thing I wanted to relay the message from Roxanne that the call for proposal and program committee applications are now open on the CD Mini Summit. And in case anyone was wondering, I also found out that having a proposal accepted for the CD Mini Summit does not grant a ticket for the Open Source Summit because it's not a track, it's a separate event. So, well, anyway, so that's the way it works with this type of events with the Linux Foundation. So in case anyone asks, so you know, yeah, so that's the only thing I had. So you want to take the floor, Tracy?
Sure. So not everybody was at the conference. So would it be okay if, Steve, if you, why don't you, are you prepared to do the presentation you did at CDCon minus the security tooling part?
Let me find it.
I think I can bring it. It's probably, I have it. I can be Vanna White for you.
Yeah, if you want to share your screen, that works.
Let me bring it up.
Yeah.
Or you can just go through it.
Okay,
Either way.
I'll go through it
Yeah,
and then you can chat. We will not make this too formal. Let me just find it. Let me just bring it up. I know I have it. I just have to get to the directory it's in.
I don't see it.
It's in the marketing directory. I got it.
I know.
All right.
But that,
Share screen. Okay, so Steve was a last minute addition to the CDCon, and it just so happened he was scheduled right after me. So I kind of talked about Ortelius and the importance of gathering the data around the DevSecOps process. I didn't exclude the security pieces because that is now becoming more and more important. In fact, there's a very interesting article that was written by Google on DevSecOps AI, and they talked about the need for putting this data someplace and starting to track it and track it historically. So Steve did this presentation. He talked a little bit about, we really first did some stuff on, what the compliances, the compliance standards are that we as a DevOps community have to start addressing. He went through some of the tools that the OpenSSF have out there that are free that can help meet those standards, as well as GitHub, just as an open source community. And then we talked about the question, how do we start adding these tools to these hundreds of workflows? This is a discussion I've had with Mark. Mark, actually, I pitched this to Mark first because it really, the way we see Jenkins as king in terms of the CDF and adoption. And when we think about solving the problem, we'd like to think about that community. So Steve and I started thinking about how we could solve the problem, and we titled it the Hero Project. And really what we're pitching here is that we already have all of the tools that we need to make this process work easy for everybody. And the process being bringing in security tooling into the CI/CD workflow. We know that not everybody's generating SBOMs. We know that not everybody's even thinking about being able to add a JFrog or a Sonatype to the process, even though companies have talked about it. If you look at the secure software development framework, that repo management is one of the primary things that they push. So we really have been thinking about this process is how do we solve the problem without disrupting and touching workflows? And we believe that CD events is the answer. We've been working on CD events. The CD events team has made amazing strides in really defining what this should look like. But we don't have a real message queue, and we don't have a way to standardize actually doing the work. We haven't done that part. So what we want to be able to do is to pull together a coalition that can think about this and solving a problem in this way, whereby we have our community of tools that are starting to publish events with a message queue and broadcast those events. At that point, Ortelius can suck up the data and start serving as the centralized place for SBOMs. Now, we should do that just for all of our own projects, right? So that we can start creating that central evidence store, so that we can start producing our internal governance and standards. But if we can do this, we're going to solve problems not just for what we're trying to accomplish and show that the CDF believes in security, but we are solving this problem for large enterprises and every Spinnaker or Shipwright or Jenkins or Tecton or Screwdriver user. And while it doesn't have to go into Ortelius, we can pull that, we can pull the information in. What Ortelius can do is at a published event, it can actually standardize a security workflow. So it could generate an SBOM. It could go check the OpenSSF scorecard. It could see if Dependabots were being used and start reporting on the status of the compliance levels of these tools. We know that somebody's going to do this. Somebody's going to figure out that this is going to get done. And we also know that CD events is farther along in terms of being able to start broadcasting these events. And we have the central evidence store to solve the problem. So from a CDF standpoint, we have all the tools that we need to do. We just need to put the plumbing together between them. And Steve, if I've said anything wrong, please let me know.
Yeah, so one of the things in the message queue part that we will probably persist the messages for a certain period of time. Even historical, we have to see how big the data grows on that front to make that persistent, because it kind of gives you that ability to go back in time and see what happened at some point. And then on the broadcast part where Tracy's talking about standardized security workflows, more than likely that would be just publishing more CD events to go off and do an SBOM, another CD event to go off and do, let's say, a Trivia security scan or run scorecard. So that's where, when we get to that point of running things, we'll have to figure out the best way to do that. More than likely, like I said, it would be just publishing more events. So, for example, if Tecton wanted to pick it up, or if Jenkins wanted to pick it up itself and do those, it could at that level.
Now, let me talk about how we got here. About maybe 3 months ago, DC jumped on our call and said, hey, TOC, what do we need to do to make the CDF more relevant? What do we need to do to bring in more members? And, you know, I, of course, always looking for solutions. And I said, hey, we could do a Jenkins end user, and that might, you know, that might bring in some revenue. But when I look at what we need to do to bring in more members, and I just put on my CEO hat and say, if this was a company and I was trying to bring in more customers, what would I need to do? I would need to do something that was relevant and exciting, so commercial tools want to be part of the conversation. Now, I have Ortelius over here on the right-hand side, but in between Ortelius and that broadcast event could be a multitude of different security tools, different testing tools, SAS tools, DAS tools, code scanning tools that could be in part of this process. Because once we get that broadcast event done and that message queue done, if we're able to publish and broadcast, and we have a layer that's actually doing the work, I believe that new member companies are going to want to be part of this conversation. They're going to want to be part of being have the ability to be executed without updating a Jenkins workflow, for example. Because I'm in this industry, I know how hard it is to try to add a tool to a existing workflow. I believe we can energize the interest in CDF, particularly around talking about adding security into the process. And I believe we will be able to identify members to come on board and help us and be more excited about what we're doing at the CD Foundation. So that's how this actually started, was with me going, how do we make the CD Foundation more interesting? And looking at what problem we should solve. And if I was to say what problem we should solve, again, putting my CEO hat on, we got to fix our pipeline so that we can easily add security tooling to them, because that's the conversation that the entire community is having right now.
And there's going to be different avenues to get the end result. So, for example, let's say we take a very poorly written Jenkins file that's like, you know, a couple thousand lines long of
Steve,
shell
somehow you're
scripts.
not, we can't hear you all of a sudden.
I can
hear you just fine.
Really?
It's-
Okay,
Yeah, I can hear.
sorry. I
So let's say we have a very poorly written Jenkins file that we don't want to touch. We're going to have to do some work to kind of derive what's going on during that workflow run. So we're going to have to kind of go around it backwards to gather what actually happened in that. So that'll be one avenue that we need to look at, because the whole goal is to make this all happen without having to change or update existing workflows.
From any tool, not just Jenkins, from any
Yeah.
tool.
And then let's say there is a very well-written Jenkins pipeline that has SBOM generation and it has code signing, that we're able to, and that company that's using that, you know, let's say a plugin to generate the SBOM that's going to be able to produce an SBOM event that will be able to consume that as well. So there's going to be different entry points for us to gather the data, or to gather the events, or trigger the events, however you want to look at it. But once we get this like moving along, I think we'll start getting the adoption out there.
And initially, I don't think we're going to be able to solve 100% of the workflows. If we can solve this for 50% of them that are fairly standardized, we're gonna have a really good start. This is going to be it'll be a really good run. And eventually we'll get to 80, but I don't think we'll ever get to 100.
Any questions?
So the other thing that I would suggest this group to look at is the Fidelity's white paper that they published from last year's CDCon. Fidelity published a white paper that basically looks like this. They have their CI/CD pipeline. They're using CD events, and they built their own evidence store. I think it would be interesting for us to get Gur on one of these calls and have him walk through how they've done it.
Yeah. Thanks, Tracy and Steve. And I mean, absolutely. I think this is very aligned with the mission we have in mind with CD events. So, and in fact, I mean, when we start talking about things like the evidence store, you know, we had in mind what Fidelity has done, also what SAS Software has done on their side, which is a similar approach. And, you know, we try to learn from those. And I think, so I think all the technology bits are there. but it's not trivial to put them all together and to get started. So if you have some pipelines and they're not security minded, and you want to start collecting data, it's not trivial how to do that. I mean, you can stand up a message queue, you can stand up some kind of GraphQL database, you can use Ortelius, there are several options there as well. So it's if you were able to to give a more opinionated and fast path to getting something like this set up, certainly would be variable and attractive. So I definitely agree on that. And as well I think there is also the consuming side, and that's I think what Ortelius gives, or other tools can also give, is once you have the data, being able to run automation out of it or visualize it. And that's what we started prototyping a bit on the CDF side with dashboards and those kind of things, so that you can actually get insights from that data, and like see, for instance, what percentage of your pipelines are not producing S-bombs, for instance, or those kind of things, or find out where certain vulnerability might be in the code that you deployed. Answer those kind of questions. Yeah, so I think that definitely that's a very important angle. And trying to, I think my question would be how this would look like. So what do you envision, like a project that would kind of?
I would envision a project probably. I would
Yeah.
envision a project under the CD events existing project. I would hope that we might be able to get commitment from the Jenkins community, the Spinnaker community, to Tecton, potentially Shipwright and Screwdriver, if they have the resources to be on some of those initial architecture calls and really get a proper requirements design done for what the publish and the broadcast events would look like and what it will require on those sides. Like we've talked about Jenkins, it's just something that the server would automatically do. Does it turn on and off? How do we, how would it look? We haven't ran down that coding lot. We're trying not to code this before we talk about it. So I think that would be the next step, is that potentially CD Events takes the lead, and we see if we can't get some excitement around it and bring in some of the project teams to let us know what it would look like on their side, what they would have to do to make this work.
And like you said, Andre, there's a lot of the pieces are there, and it's going to be just hooking things together I think is where we're at this point. So that's where we just need to find out from all the different projects where they're at, and if they have to put anything on their roadmap.
Yeah, I mean, from the CDF side, we've been working with all the different communities. Well, not so much, not all of them. I mean, from Jenkins side, I mean, that was kind of led by the Fidelity people that implemented the plugin.
Right.
But I'm sure that could be extended or updated, the plugin. I'm not sure what the latest status is since it was published. I mean, but we have been working with the various communities to get this implemented, to get support for emitting the events. And like you said, I mean, depending on the data model of the tool, there are certain things that you can do easily. Like for Jenkins, if you have a pipeline specification, or for Tecton or Screwdriver, where you have a native concept of pipeline, it's pretty straightforward to send events about pipeline starting and stopping and those kind of things.
Yeah.
But as soon as you get to other kind of events, like an artifact was generated, a build was run, some code was deployed, and so forth, it's not necessarily so straightforward, because those concepts are not available natively in those tools. Like if you're looking at Spinnaker, they know about deployment, but if you do a deployment through Screwdriver or through Tecton, they're just running some piece of automation. They don't know it's a deployment necessarily. So
Right.
there need to be some way to, either have the user instrument their pipeline, but that's what we're trying to steer away from. Otherwise, like you were mentioning earlier, maybe looking at logs and try to figure out what's happening. But that's very, I guess, tool specific. That kind of work, that side of work is, I guess, is not something that should be, I think, on CD event side specifically. It's more like plugins or tools specific to the different tools that let the tools emit more and more CD events, if it makes sense.
Yeah, and that's where I said we're gonna have different avenues of attack on this.
Yeah. Okay, so what do you think we can do as a TOC? I mean,
Well, I think we all should think about what if this is a project we want to take on. It is a big effort, but I do feel like it will bring relevance back into the CD Foundation. We need to decide if we want to make it a sub-project of the CD events, which I think is where it should be. I think CD events should own this. Not that you guys should do all the work. That's where it should be managed. I believe that we should think about, from an outreach perspective, how we can bring in our outreach and our marketing to get the word out that we are starting this project and get the wordsmithing done so commercial tools want to become involved in it, which may help stimulate our membership and get them to the table to talk about how this can be done. But at first, I think that we should think about it, and maybe next week, I don't know if we should hold a vote on it or how we should go about it, but that's my thoughts. I'm thinking that we should probably vote to do some kind of a sub-project under CD events to build basically the CD events infrastructure. And from there, we need to start working on getting the word out and getting some contributors who are impacted by this involved. And I believe they're out there, and I believe that they'll want to be part of this conversation if it means that it's going to be easier to implement their tools into anybody's CI/CD pipeline. I mean, the CD event solves the core problem that Kosuke talked about before he kind of did his exit. In the discussion around plugins have held us back. And CD events is a way to solve that problem. And we've all known that. So let's go ahead and take it to the next level and let's solve it. But let's do it around the security puzzle, because that's where people need the help the most. And that's where we're going to get the most, we're going to look a little shinier than we are today, because we're going to be having a discussion about what's super relevant right now. And then we go see if we can get some potential funding. We could go to the Open SSF and ask for funding. We can see if we can get some of the larger contributors, some of the giants back in the game to help us build it. It's an important part of the DevSecOps puzzle. So it would shock me if people just went, "No, we're not going to worry about trying to add security to the DevOps pipeline. We're just going to continue doing SBOMs manually." Which I don't think is going to be the answer.
So, Andre, just out of interest, did Jer or Jamie ever talk about the work we did at the CD events meeting, or kind of what level of understanding has been kind of, shared around the work we're doing? Because obviously, when I saw this flow, it looks really similar to, I guess, what we were doing initially in Fidelity was around, initially building an evidence store around audit requirements. And a lot of the work was around the different event collectors and streams. I think Kinesis is the one I think we used. And then, from going to that point of managing how that was implemented, which was obviously quite complicated. Don't work directly in the team, but I do manage some of the associates. So I would hear kind of the work they were doing and the various challenges. And to where we are now, which is using GraphQL to try and build you know, some way to use that data and a portal as well. And obviously, you know, security aspects would be one way of looking at the data once it's collected and available, not just to understand the health of our pipelines or, you know, how things are being done at Fidelity on a grand scale, but also security would obviously be a key aspect to use that data. So I don't know if you've reached out to Jared, Jamie, or if they're in a position to share even at a high level around, you know, maybe learnings that we had that might inform or benefit kind of, you know, at the point that this discussion is at right now around the inception of the idea around how CD events can expand.
I think having Jared come and do a presentation for us would be awesome. I believe he would be willing to do it. I know,
Yeah.
Andrea, if you reached out to him, he would say yes.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we had the user story that you mentioned earlier, Tracy, and I think it would be great to know what happened since, to have some more recent updates, like you were saying, Neil, of, you know, all the learnings and setting up the infrastructure and, yeah, you know, especially also would be very interested in, you know, like the data store, the evidence store with the GraphQL API on top, and, you know, the kind of challenges that you're getting at extracting the data. And so, yeah, absolutely. I mean, we can discuss. I can reach out to Jer and see if we could maybe have a session here for the TOC, or yeah, we can discuss where's the best place, and for sure I think this group would be interested, or we could host it at the CD event project as well.
And when we do that, if we could get let Dadisi and I don't know who else is really on our governing board, but it would be good to bring. I think there's just 3 of them. Maybe it's Sasha. Mark, do you know?
Yeah, there's Sasha.
It's Sasha. So maybe we can get Sasha and Dadisi in that TOC meeting to hear what we're proposing as well. Because Dadisi's question was a fair one when he asked us that question, and I feel like we should have a response. And this is Steve and I's best effort at pulling together a response that we feel is real, that could make a difference for the CDF. And it would get great to have Jer on that call so they could see how actually end users already made the attempt to do this. And what we're talking about is creating the open source platform so that companies can do this, and leveraged our tools, Jenkins and Shipwright and Tecton and Spinnaker and Screwdriver, so that they can actually start leveraging them in the security conversation.
Makes perfect sense to me. There's clearly a need for this. So yeah, it sounds great to me.
So then, Andrea and Melissa, you want to coordinate another an update TOC call and see if we can't get to DC and Sasha. And there should be is there not a member rep as well on the board, or is it just the 2 of them?
Oh, well, no, there's Mark Wade on the board.
Oh,
As-
you're on the board. Okay,
Yes,
good.
and yes, I'm a member rep, and yes, I'm also the treasurer. So yes.
Okay, great. Then we have all the right people in the room at that point to really have a serious conversation about it. We just need the extra 2, and I think we should do it at the next TOC meeting. And maybe have Jared present what Fidelity did. I can present, or Steve can present this particular flow. We can have Jared present what Fidelity has done, or do Jared first, show it what we're proposing that mimics what Fidelity's done to make this an open source solution, so that they understand that this is where companies are already starting to take their DevOps pipelines.
Yeah, I think that there is kind of an architecture part, Tracy, and that's maybe
Oh, there's a
something. I
big
mean,
architecture part. I don't know if we want to go
Yes.
down that road if we're not going to be able to get backing to do it, though.
yeah, but I think there's like an overall type of architecture that we're trying to set up, and I think we've been discussing for some time the kind of reference architecture work, but never managed to get actually the cycles to implement it. And I think that's maybe the kind of material, kind of reference architecture where we show this kind of use cases, this kind of setup. And maybe if we had that kind of material, that's where we could, like you said, go to other parties, go to the OpenSSF, trying to get funding, getting more people involved to see then from that specific architecture, what are the software bit that or configuration / infra bit that are required, and what of that we can do as open source, and then one or more project may come out of that, and of course it could live under CD events or be part of the CDF. But I think, yeah, maybe having like a good architecture bit or white paper built around this would be useful. What do you think?
I think that we should find out if this is, we should get Dadisi and Sasha and the governing board on, in line. And then if they're excited about it, give us a thumbs up, then I think that would be the next step. I hate to do a lot of work if they, say, no, we don't really think we should go down this road, or just not have a conversation with them first. I kind of feel like we have to go to upper management, and then we can start working on the pieces that we need to pull together for potential members and go to the projects.
All right. Yeah. Okay. Let's do like that. Then let's try to set up. Hopefully the next UBC meeting, and we'll check with Dadisi and Sasha whether this time works for them. If not, we can try to set up some kind of alternate session where we can all meet and discuss this.
And Fidelity, they're going to be an important part of that too.
Yeah.
I think Fidelity would be excited about the prospects of us kind of not copying what they're doing, but giving them a nod for what they have already done. So who knows, they may even be willing to share some of I don't know how they built their listener, but maybe they would be willing to contribute that back to the project. But they may have written it to be very specific to their environment. Neil, do you know?
What was the last part of the question, Tracy?
If the work that was done at Fidelity could be, is it broad enough to be potentially contributed back on the listener side as an open source project?
That's a good question. That's a good question. I think certainly some of it would be relevant, but I know that from my limited understanding, like I don't work directly with the team day to day, I think the event collection will be unique to each company, how they employ this. But I do believe we've already contributed back part of that implementation that's not relevant to us, just to extend the part of CD events to offer up different event streams. Either we've contributed that back, or it's work that they want to contribute back beyond what the changes that we made for our particular work streams, if that makes sense. So there is parts of this that would be probably specific, but I think we could definitely look at the parts we've contributed back, or contribute back parts that would be more relevant to a broader audience, if that makes sense. Again, I don't work day to day in it, but I do know that the event collection part was quite specific to the way we have our data set up. But I think there'd be other parts of it though that would be relevant to even from the learning side, even from the kind of conversations you might have around how is this collected, what do we do with the data, what are the kind of limitations as you collect this data, what kind of challenges can happen. I think those kind of general learnings will be relevant anyway, regardless of the specifics of how someone might implement a platform like this. I hope.
That's what I hope too. I thought that if there would be a lot of kind of custom stuff in there, which would make sense. But that doesn't mean we can't use some of the basis for how to get us started. And there may be pieces that they've already worked on that are,
I think-
that's what my hope was too.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, everybody, for
Right.
listening to that. I know Andrea was probably like, well, a short meeting today. And then, like nagging my niece to go into IT, I'm like, CDF, CDF. I swear, I told people at CDCon, I said, people always supposed to say CD events 3 times and Tracy will show up.
All right. Thanks, everyone. And yeah, until next time then.
Thanks all.
Hey, thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you
Bye.
for the topic. Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.